All right, welcome everybody. Good to go, good to go. Thank you. Sorry, I apologize a little bit about the confusion about the time because I'd asked the question whether 6 o'clock was okay and I had assumed it was, and then I heard from another lecturer that they had a collab tonight. So thank you for seeing the announcement and joining at 7 o'clock. And I'm sorry I put the link up late, but I'd forgotten I was waiting for you the time to be confirmed. But I'm very glad you're all here and can join us for this national support session. So if you've got any questions as we go, and maybe just ask your questions at the end because you might preempt what I'm going to say. So let's just start on the national support session. You can pop your questions in the chat, but let's see what happens. So the objective of a national support session, for those of you who haven't been through one before, is really just to give you some guidance in preparing for your assignment. So we have one generally a week before each assignment is due. And we actually use the assignment itself. We just go through it without giving too much away. And the same procedure follows for when we have our exam at the end of the semester. We also have a national support session the week before, just to guide you in any issues that you might have. So that's the objective. It focuses in on the assignment that we've got due. So this national support session is for your first assignment, and your first assignment is due next week on the 30th of August. I haven't had any questions. I did put up a link to the assignment or a copy of the assignment under more resources for those who hadn't accessed it. So you should all have access to the assignment. I think some of you even started work on the assignment because I've had a few questions. So our assignment is due on the 30th of August. When assignments are due, the due time for assignments is 9 o'clock. So you need to submit your assignment before 9 o'clock. If your assignment arrives into the system at 1 minute past 9, I'm not allowed to mark it. So it's crucial that you get your assignment in well before 9 o'clock. Don't be lastminute.com because things could happen with the system, it could happen with Eskom, it could happen with load shedding. So I urge you all, please do submit your assignments timeously, and note I'm not allowed to give you any leniency at 1 minute past 9. That's out of my court and out of what I'm entitled to do. So please make sure you get that assignment in always before 9 o'clock. When you prepare your assignments, please make sure that at the beginning of your assignment you've got a cover page. Your cover page includes your student number, your module that you're doing, your assignment 1, the date, as well as a table of contents. If for any reason you hit a snag and you can't submit the assignment, don't tell me because there's nothing I can do about it unless you log a VC assist ticket. So if you have any problem submitting the assignment, the very first thing you need to do is log that VC assist ticket to say you've got a problem with your assignment submission. Maybe you're sick, maybe you need a doctor's note, maybe you need something like that. But the very first step is to log that VC assist ticket. Don't tell me because I can't help you unless you've done that. So most important to remember. When you submit your assignment, take a screenshot of it, of your submission, so that you've got a record that your assignment has been submitted. It's always advisable to do that, is to keep track of your submissions. And if there are any error messages, not that they do, but if it does so happen that you get an error message when you submit and you're not sure, always log that VC assist ticket and get your ticket number. Okay, and really, really important, guys, that VC assist and their tickets is the way to note any problems that you have. Excuse this next paragraph because I did take this national support session from what I did last semester, and so therefore the date of the 29th of April is not next year, as was pointed out. That date, basically what I'm saying to you in that is if your assignment is due on the 30th of August, I basically start marking from the 31st of August. So that date should be to tell you that my marking only commences on the 31st of August once I've got my marking memos from VC results. So there's nothing I can do in terms of marking until the next day. So just to let you know, if you submit your assignment early, I don't touch it until the 31st of August, which is when my official marking period will commence for that. Marks are only released once the marking has been completed for my group, and the marks are hidden up until then. So generally, I've got about 7 working days to do all the marking. Thereafter, you'll get your results. So your results won't come through straight away. It's when the group is all marked and all submitted and VC results have made sure the results are accurate. That's when your results will be released. So don't start looking for your results in the couple of days after. It does take about 7 working days for me to get all the assignments marked and submitted. So that's our time frame that we're looking at. And it's quite straightforward. So I'm really guided by what VC allows. So any problems, log that ticket and let them deal with the issues. I'm happy to follow up on anything, but I can't actually solve the problems for you. Okay. Right. So when you look at your assignment, there's a cover page or 2 on it that gives you, just making sure I've got the right one here for you, that gives you some guidelines. So what it basically says to you is our marks for this assignment are out of 100, and you need to allocate yourself in order to submit an assignment that's sort of comprehensive and well researched and well structured and well put together. Allow yourselves sort of a 10-hour window to do it. So book off the time in your schedule between now and then. Some of you have started, but give yourselves 10 hours is what the sort of a guideline allocation of time is. Please note the instructions that this is where it's made very clear about plagiarism and about copying material from original sources, either copying it without a reference, not putting in quotation marks. So please make sure no material is copied directly from original sources unless it's in the form of a direct quote. And what it says to you there is that no more than 10% of the assignment may consist of direct quotes, which means that you can take direct quotes, but you can't direct quote entire pieces of work. That is where you need to be able to paraphrase and write things in your own words. Okay, so please make sure direct quotes are acceptable, but only up until a certain point. So people direct quote large portions of their assignment, and then it sort of puts you in a compromised position when it comes to the referencing components. So I can't really mark it if it's more than 10%. So please watch those direct quotes, make an effort at paraphrasing. Make a copy of your assignment before you submit it. Assignments must be typed unless otherwise specified. All work must be adequately and correctly referenced, and we'll go through that now. Begin each section on a new page. It's an individual assignment, and you can be penalized for not adhering to page limits if they're given to you, and we'll look at that again shortly. And make sure all your references and sources are accurately both in text referenced and in the reference list. And as I said, we use APA 7th edition referencing. And I touched on that in our introductory session, that is our guideline. It's not Harvard. It's not maybe what you have used in the past. We specifically use APA 7th edition, which is the American Psychological Association. So that is your referencing protocol for this module. You're given at the front of your assignment, you're given a rubric to be able to do your referencing correctly. We are required to ensure that you are referencing correctly for APA. If you consistently have errors in your referencing because you don't understand the referencing protocols, or you are unsure how to reference, so therefore it's not being done in your assignment correctly, we have to deduct 5% for minor errors, and those minor errors are listed under various headings. And if there are major errors, which again are listed under these headings, we have to deduct 10%. So I'm required as part of my job not to just look at the content of your work, I have to look at the referencing process and make sure you're getting it correct. So within our technical rubric, the first component is consistency. So it is that you understand APA and you are correctly and consistently using APA referencing throughout your assignment. So for example, a minor deduction is the referencing style is generally consistent, but there are 1 or 2 changes in the format of the in-text referencing. Or, for example, page numbers for direct quotes have been provided for one source, but not in another instance. So it's telling me that you might have made an error once, which is fine, but if you continue to make that error throughout, I have to look at it as a technical inconsistency and deduct 5%. And if there are major errors, which is poor and inconsistent referencing style in the used in text or in the bibliography, or multiple formats used, or the format for direct quotes and or books is different across multiple instances, it's 10%. So consistency of referencing is very important, and you've got time to go back and check your referencing. All right. The other heading is technical correctness, that the references are positioned correctly, that all the concepts and ideas that you give have been referenced, that the positions are correct. Sort of minor errors, we have to deduct 5%. So basically, if you've got 80% correct, you would be okay. But once you start to sort of dip below 80%, I need to make the deductions. So in terms of referencing an APA style, I have put the link under the referencing resources, under more resources, the recording that the librarian did for us for new students in psychology focusing on the APA. So I really suggest that before you even start your assignment, you watch that recording that she's done for APA referencing, and that you also follow the link that's provided to the referencing guide, because those are very important. And when it comes to referencing, before you do your references, check its technical correctness. So I do speak to this to say to you, don't use complicated references. When you're going to look for your sources, things like YouTube are difficult to reference and they're not true academic sources. Try to keep things simple for yourself, especially in the beginning. We'll come to the textbooks reference, but you know, don't use things that are going to give you complicated ways. Try to keep it simple. Find sources that suit what you're doing and that they are relatively straightforward referencing processes, and use sources that are academically sound. So we did discuss this in our introduction. So keep it to academic sources, which is generally information that's been peer reviewed and published. It could be a book, it could be a journal article, it could be a website. But if you're using a website, make sure whoever has written that website is of an academic status. So somebody from the discipline, not just a news article from a magazine that maybe supports something, that it is a true academic source. And if you have any questions, Google what is an academic source. If you've got any questions about the source you're using, you can ask me and I can give you advice on your source. And you can also ask the online librarian as well if you are concerned about the academic source that you want to select. But please try to stay away from sort of Lumen Learning and study.com, because those are not true academic sources, and we need to get used to finding the correct resources. So that's the technical referencing. It seems a little bit daunting, and sometimes in the first assignment it can be. But as you work through the semester, it will become easier. It will become second nature to you. Somebody asked me about my slides that I put up as my online slides for the collaboration, and those are not academic sources. Okay, so please don't reference me. Please don't reference me or reference my slides. I'm not an academic source. A lot of what I give to you comes from the textbook. So always try to go to the original source document. So please don't say according to Rebecca Wakeford, IEE, online collaboration dated. It's not a suitable academic reference for submitting our assignments. They're just there to give you information. Okay. Hopefully that's clear. So this assignment is going to focus on learning the units 1 and 2. We get given rubrics to mark by, and those rubrics for the most part are also put into this paper, and we'll look at them. And it's really important before you submit, you look at the rubric to make sure that you are answering the question as you need to answer it. It's really useful, those rubrics are given to you. Make sure all your referencing is correct, and those are your assignment instructions. So after this assignment, it basically tells you you should be able to provide the comprehensive definition of psychology, explain the core components, look at contributions of early theorists, explain what is the scientific approach, the steps to a scientific investigation, and differentiate between quantitative and qualitative research approaches. So that's sort of what's in the assignment, and those are our assignment instructions. This is not a difficult assignment. It's quite a straightforward assignment, so I shouldn't see you having too many challenges. So here is our assignment. What I've done is I've put little stars next to what I feel you need to really remember and pay attention to. Very first question, number 1, is provide a detailed definition of psychology. That question is for 5 marks. Generally 5 marks is a paragraph. Okay. So really look at it and say, okay, well, I need to give 5 marks worth for this definition. If we look in the rubric that's provided, which I've put below this question, question 1.1, it says to you, and this is what I'm looking at, that you have been able to provide me with a detailed definition of psychology by looking at the origins of psychology and what it studies. So that gives you an idea of what to put into your definition. You are welcome to use additional sources to support your definition, but when it comes to a definition, it's really wants you to look at it in your own words. Don't give me a quote of a definition from the textbook, because that doesn't tell me that you're understanding what that detailed definition is. You can paraphrase it, you can use additional resources, but don't just give me one quote for the definition of psychology. I need to see that you understand what it means. Okay. Question 1.2 asks you, and I've put a star there because it says, in your own words, define the core concepts, components of psychology. So when it says in your own words, it means that you can't put them as direct quotes. So this is where you need to be able to paraphrase. Okay, so it says there you must still reference your sources within the APA 7th edition. So you're welcome to use your textbook, but don't give me a direct quote from your textbook. You need to be able to put that into your own words. So you need to be able to define what is the mind for 5 marks, so about a paragraph, mental processes 5 marks, about a paragraph, and behavior. So it's there in your textbook, but you can't give me the direct quotes from your textbook. You need to show me that you can confidently understand those core components. So the way they're marked, the rubrics are marked that if I give you the full 5 marks, for example, for question 1, it means it's excellent. 3 to 4 marks means you meet the required standard. Developing is 2 marks, you're approaching it, and 0 to 1 is the standard is insufficient. So look at your answer and say to yourself, have I answered what's in the rubric correctly, and am I exceeding the required standard? So that it tells you that in order to get high marks for a question, above 80% for a question, really you need to exceed the required standard, which means that you put in more effort into your definition and into how you construct your answer. And that's how the rubric works. So please don't submit your paper until you've checked against the rubric and you're satisfied you've answered all of those components of what the rubric is asking you to do. Should be a degree for referencing. I know. Should be an honours degree or a master's degree. Question 2, it says in your own words. So would it be required for question 1.2 to include direct quotations? No, it wouldn't be, because it's telling you specifically to put it in your own words. Okay, so there specifically you need to make sure you can do that. Question 1.3 is also in the same chapter of evolution of psychology. So it says to you very clearly, choose any 2. So you don't have to do all of those theorists. This question is out of 20 marks. So you choose 2 of those theorists and you create a side-by-side comparison table. So it's asking you to create a table. If you choose, for example, Freud and Jung, you create a table with 2 columns, one for Freud and one for Jung, and that is how your answer is submitted. Okay, and for each one that you choose, you need to be able to say what that particular theorist contributed, and you need to do some research to find out an explanation of the experiments or the research they did to explain their theories and what they were presenting. So if you choose Freud, you have 1 square in your table that says this is what his contribution is to the field of psychology. And remember, it's his contribution, not necessarily the whole perspective, but Freud's own contribution. And you need to do some research. What did he do to support his ideas? So what experiments did he do? With Skinner, what experiments did he do? And just do a side-by-side table. Okay, so it's giving you what a table should look like. What was, and your headings can be contributions to the field as one heading and experiments used. There's not too much to compare between the different theorists, but it's just asking you to be able to do a side-by-side table so we can see the difference between what Jung did and what Freud did and their contributions. So pick 2 of those and put them in a table. So it says to you, see that comparison, it's there, look at the rubric. So the rubric that we're given, this is out of 20 marks, so it will be 10 marks for one and 10 marks for the other, that the work is correctly referenced. Okay, because remember that when we're looking at Freud or we're looking at Jung, these are not our ideas. We're taking it from somewhere else. So we have to reference what we are saying. Okay, so don't give me a table without referencing, because these are not your ideas. They're coming from another source. So I have to mark for referencing that you've done that you've been able to explain the contribution to the field. Information is well thought out and is sufficient. Okay, so if we've got in our table, we've got 2 theorists with 2 areas of comparison. So it's 4 blocks to the table. So each one of those blocks is probably worth about 5 marks or so. So give me well thought out information that is sufficient, and the experiments they used are also done in a similar way. So although we're writing in a table, don't get misled by the table. Your writing still needs to be academic. So because it's a table, don't feel that you can do bullet point, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. It still needs to be written within the table in academic fashion, and still needs to have inside the table, inside your writing, in-text referencing. It's just the space you've got is a bit smaller. So don't let the fact that you're writing in a table detract from your need to still write academically in that table. Okay, so I'm sort of giving you feedback based on what I saw in the last time this assignment was submitted, and a lot of students just went bullet point, bullet point, bullet point, and then they put one in-text reference right at the bottom at the end of the table. That's not correct. You're writing academically regardless of whether it's in a table or not in a table. Okay, I hope that helps you. And again, choose two theorists based upon what is the easiest to answer. So some theorists did quite straightforward experiments that are you're able to find. Others were slightly more difficult. So choose theorists that make your answering easier. Question 2 now moves where we were last night with our research. It gives you a short little case study there about John, who's a Bachelor of Arts student and starting his journey, and then COVID hit and he was forced to get a job and he became demotivated and he missed classes, and his parents are worried about his mental well-being as he's not focused. And many students, such as John, are experiencing the same challenges. Therefore, you've been tasked to conduct research with tertiary students in understanding the effects that COVID-19 has on their mental well-being. So what the question says, a scientific approach allows one to carefully observe phenomena and collect data that will assist in improving the quality of human life. After reading the scenario above, answer the questions. First part of the question. So the question is sort of divided into two parts. It's for 10 marks, but it's sort of two parts. First part is differentiate between qualitative and quantitative research approaches. So bracket that, that's the first thing you have to do. So you have to differentiate between those two approaches. And the second part of the question is to explain which approach you would prefer to use to understand the effects of COVID-19 on the mental well-being of tertiary students. Whichever approach you decide to use, you have to justify why. You will need to conduct additional research to help you answer this question. So therefore, the expectation, I'm not sure if there's a rubric with this one. Let me just jump onto the next question. Yeah, there we go. So the rubric says to you that the student can understand the difference between quantitative and qualitative research. That's the first part. That's what I'm going to look for, that you understand the difference between those two approaches. And that the second part is to explain which approach to use to understand the effects of COVID-19 on mental well-being of tertiary students, that you have conducted additional research to support your arguments. So it's quite a lot for 10 marks. And the way I divide it generally is 5 marks to give me the difference between qualitative and quantitative, and 5 marks to tell me which approach you've used, that you've justified it, and that you've done the academic research to support it. So we'll be looking that I will be looking that you've got that referencing in there for part of that question. Okay, so we did cover that quite thoroughly last night in the research module. So make sure you can differentiate between the two approaches as part 1, and part 2 is to say which approach you prefer to use. Okay, excellent, exceeding required standard, good, developing, and poor. Question 2.2. Need you to go to that link. Okay, and when you click on the link, it will take you to a research report, which I'm not going through because that's your job to read that and to understand it. So it gives you a research report, and I suggest, and you have time, that you read through it from beginning to end, okay, and understand it, and do that first before you try to answer the question. And what it wants you to do is to look at those scientific investigation steps that we covered last night when answering the questions and assignments. Do you need to add the questions? No, just state the question numbers. Please don't retype the assignment words or anything. Just give me the question numbers. Read through the research report and look at the scientific steps, and they actually give you the steps there. Okay, they give you step 1 to step 8. We covered them in detail last night. So again, if you missed that recording, it's up now under the more resources. It wants you to apply the steps to the article. So read the entire article and respond briefly, 1 to 4 sentence maximum, to only the steps mentioned in the following table. Use the table to guide your write-up. You are to write in your own words. So it's telling you that this isn't about now academic research. It's about you looking at that research report. There's no need to cite the research report because we're actually answering the question about the research report. So you need to say, read the research report. Step 1 is identify the problem. What problem is the problem that's being addressed in the research report? 2, why is the study important? That's a slightly longer question. It needs 10 marks. What research design approach was used? Collect data. Which methods were used for data collection? 2 parts to this: who and what was being studied. Step 7 is the analysis of the data. What was the analysis tool, instrument, or software used in the article? Note, only mention the tool you come across. That's an easy 5 marks. You do not need to go in depth or mention exactly how. So easy 5 marks is to do the tool. And then step 8, I think it's for 10 marks, is what conclusions. Note, only give a summary of the findings from your article, but remember it's for 10 marks. So sufficiently so for 10 marks, and try and identify as many of the conclusions as you can. So it's a very straightforward question. It just means that you've got to be clear on understanding what those research steps mean. Question 2.2, that's this one, no in-text referencing because the source you're using is your academic article. Okay, so we've given you the article for this. There's no need to cite it. What you're going to do is just say, according to the article, this is the problem. So it doesn't matter. I'm not concerned about citing the article in this because we're giving it to you. It's part of your paper. It's almost like citing your paper in your answer. So I'm not stressed about that. Question 2.3 is a delightful question, and it's really testing our ability to understand APA referencing. And this is where it's great you've got that resource there from the librarian to help you in answering this question. At the bottom of the slide is the link, is the name of the link to the online writing lab. So they've given you a reference down below. It's the reference for the research article that you used in question 2.2. And there are errors in it. You need to identify at least 10 errors, and there are more than 10, but you need to do at least 10. So it'll be 1 mark per error you've identified. In point form, so you are entitled to write this in point form. It's not an essay. You can write it in point form and just say what those errors are. And I'm not even going to go into this because I don't want to give it away. But you need to look very carefully at it. Errors sometimes can be quite minor little errors, but you need to be able to pick them up. So to help you complete this question successfully, cross-check with the detail in the article. Also consult the IIE library link on how to reference a journal article with multiple authors, because that's what that is. It's a journal article with multiple authors, and there's a specific formatting that APA 7th edition requires. And the link will also explain referencing correctly, so it's important. So I've given you the video link to the collab we did with the librarian. There's a link to the online learning resource. So it's a very good question because it really is testing your ability to start to understand some of those tiny little differences in the APA 7th edition. So there are definitely 10 there. There's more than 10, and it'll be 1 mark each. Okay, so it's not too difficult. And the final part is really what I've done here is I've just shown you, because there's often confusion about referencing your textbook. So I have actually given you the reference for your textbook here, and I've given you from that OWL Purdue resources section is the idea of how to cite it. So you can see there, it says to you to cite a textbook, the author and the year of publication. So we've got it there, Wheaton W, 2018. The title of the work, which is Psychology, Themes and Variations. Note with our textbook that Hassim is not the author, he's actually the editor. So whenever we cite our textbook, the author of the textbook is not Wheaton and Hassim, it's actually Wheaton and Hassim is the editor. So when you cite your textbook in in-text citations, you're going to cite it as Wheaton 2018. Okay, not Wheaton and Hassim. I'm not going to mark it incorrect, but what I'm just doing for you is showing you how the correct referencing for this textbook should go. It then asks you for the editor, which we've done. J. Hassim is the editor. It's the 3rd edition. Cengage Learning is the publisher. And if the DOI is available, you can put the DOI in. So I'm just providing you with a slide that shows you how to reference your textbook correctly. And what you can do is go to OWL Purdue and have a look, and you'll see that's exactly how OWL Purdue does it. So when you look for journals with multiple authors, it will give you a thing similar to that, and then you can check that referencing off and try and pick up the errors. Okay, so that's the national support session. I hope that's given you some guidance. I hope it's answered any questions you might have or problems you might be having. It's not difficult. It's just testing you that you are really understanding what we've been doing so far in this course. Yeah, so that's it, guys. Any questions, please ask me now. You can submit in terms of Safe Assign. If you submit an assignment now and on Monday or Monday or over the weekend think, oh crikey, I've done something wrong, you are welcome to resubmit through Safe Assign. You can resubmit as many times as you want, but I can only mark your last submission that you submit. So if you submit once and you go, oh no, I made a mistake, fix your mistake, submit it again. I don't look at that first submission. I only look at the last submission you give me. Okay, I think an exam lets you go through Safe Assign just twice, but with an assignment, there can be multiple submissions, but I can only mark the last one. Sometimes when you submit through Safe Assign, remember it gives you that plagiarism report. So I really do go through the assignments and I look at the plagiarism report that's submitted in Safe Assign. I try and pick up why it's coming up with a high plagiarism number. And, you know, I have reported students in the past for plagiarizing. I pick it up. Safe Assign is a very good system to use. But sometimes with Safe Assign, if you have submitted your assignment once, it sometimes picks that assignment up as plagiarism. So when it gives you that percentage, go back and double check and just see why. I think the results do come back instantly, Paul. I never quite look at it from the student side, but I think they do before you submit. It gives you that opportunity to correct errors. But I just sometimes do see, sometimes it picks up your referencing, and I can see that. I can see that when I check it. It highlights for me what it considers plagiarism. And sometimes if you've all referenced the textbook, it all comes back that that textbook is similar, but that's also a good thing. So I really look at the content more than the referencing as plagiarism. So yeah, check your percentage, and if you can adjust it or resubmit it or whatever you need to do, then do so. All right. So yeah, guys, that's it. I hope it helps you. I will put up the recording as soon as it's uploaded and downloaded. The recording for last night is up. The slides are up. Yeah, I hope that answers any questions you might have and that you're all on your way with getting the assignments in. Okay, are we all good? No questions? Okay, but as I say, you're welcome to email me. I can't answer directly, but if you're unsure of something, by all means, drop me an email and I'll get back to you. Okay, so remember, this is our first attempt. You can feel nervous, and it is just a starting point for us. Okay, thank you for joining me, guys. Good luck. Have a good evening further, and yeah, I'll see you on the other side of the assignment. Thanks, guys. I'm just going to stop the recording.